Bombing Democracy to Retain Power by staff reporter Harare, Zimbabwe. It's loud, it's brutal, and it's clear. No more anti-2030 talk. The bombing at Sapes Trust in Harare's leafy Belgravia suburb in the early hours of Thursday morning sent an unmistakable message: democracy, it seems, is forbidden in Zimbabwe. What should have been a morning of open dialogue of citizens gathering to discuss the Constitution and the nation's future quickly turned into another day defined by fear, smoke, and repression. The explosion tore through the quiet residential street shortly after 2 a.m., shattering windows, scorching walls, and rattling nerves across the capital. By dawn, the smell of burnt fuel and charred documents hung in the air, the aftermath of what activists are calling an attack on free thought itself. The Sapes Trust, a well-known policy and civic forum, was set to host a press conference titled Constitutional Crossroads: Citizens Respond to Zimbabwe's Constitutional Crisis. The discussion was made to examine growing concerns over the ruling SANUP's controversial proposal to extend President Emerson Mnangagwa's rule to 2030, a move critics describe as a direct assault on democracy. But before a single microphone could be switched on, the regime had sent its own response through fire and fear. A gathering silenced before it began. On the program were some of the country's most outspoken figures: Tendai Biti, Job Saikola, Jameson Timba, Jacob Ngarafume, Muniradzi Gaise, Obert Mazaror, Emmanuel Sitima, Maline Banda. Alongside them were church leaders, trade unionists, war veterans, and ordinary citizens, a mix that represented the diverse, battered conscience of Zimbabwe's civil society. Many of these figures have been arrested, harassed, or imprisoned before. Some bear scars, physical and emotional, from previous encounters with state security, yet they continue to speak. Or at least they tried to. The bombing destroyed part of the Sapes Trust auditorium, scattering chairs and shredding banners emblazoned with the theme "Defending Our Constitution." By sunrise, police had cordoned off the area. Security agents arrived in unmarked vehicles. Witnesses said plainclothes operatives were seen photographing the wreckage and taking away computer equipment. A resident who lives nearby told reporters, "It was like a war zone. We heard a loud bang and the ground shook. Then we saw smoke." Everyone knows what Sapes Trust stands for. This was at random. The press conference that never was. Undeterred, organizers attempted to move the event to another venue in Mount Pleasant, but just as they began addressing the press, riot police stormed in. Batons were raised. Cameras fell. Journalists were shoved aside as opposition leaders were ordered to disperse. It turned into a cat and mouse game, said one attendee. Everywhere they went, police followed. The goal was simple: silence. A similar press briefing in Bulawayo met the same fate. Police blocked opposition figures from entering the venue, citing security concerns. By afternoon, it was clear the state had decided that no anti-2030 message would be heard that day. Democracy bombed at dawn. Human rights organizations quickly condemned the attack, calling it an orchestrated assault on civic freedom. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Association, ZimRights, released a statement saying the bombing marked a dangerous escalation of politically motivated violence designed to intimidate and suppress legitimate public discourse. This latest attack is a direct manifestation of the environment of fear and repression that many Zimbabweans face daily, ZimRights said. The bombing of Sapes Trust is not an isolated incident. It is part of a larger pattern of attacks against civic spaces, human rights defenders, and activists exercising their rights and freedoms. Within hours, international condemnation began to pour in. Advocacy groups across Africa called for an independent investigation, even as state media downplayed the incident as a suspected gas explosion. Few in Harare believed it. Fear spreads beyond Harare. The Sapes Trust bombing was not the only attack that night. In Highfield, the home of civic activist Gilbert Dwand was reportedly set on fire just hours later. He and his family escaped unharmed, but the timing raised alarm. 2 fires in one night, targeting activists. "It's not coincidence," said one civil society leader. "It's coordination." Opposition leader Jacob Nerif, recently released from prison, called the attacks an unmistakable message from a frightened regime. "They bomb ideas they cannot confront," he said. "They fear words more than weapons." The politics behind the fire. The attacks come amid growing unrest over SANUP's internal proposal to amend the constitution, a move that could extend Mnangagwa's stay in office to 2030, aligning it with the government's so-called Vision 2030 development agenda. Critics say the plan mirrors the authoritarian drift seen under Robert Mugabe's final years, entrenching power while crushing dissent. Political analyst Dr. Pensize Ruhania told reporters that the events reflect a government increasingly intolerant of alternative thought. When a democracy begins bombing venues of dialogue, it has already declared war on its own citizens, he said. A war on ideas. Sapes Trust director Ibo Mandeza, a respected academic and political analyst, declined to comment publicly while investigations are ongoing. But colleagues say the attack was deeply personal. "This was not just a bomb," said one associate. "It was a warning, a reminder that, in Zimbabwe, thinking differently can be dangerous." Police have since announced that investigations are underway but have made no arrests. Unconfirmed reports suggest that surveillance footage was seized shortly after the blast before independent investigators could access it. Opposition figures, however, remain defiant. 10-day Baiti posted on X, "You can bomb buildings, but you cannot bomb the truth. Sharp will speak." A nation in the shadows. As night fell over Harare, the rubble at Sapes Trust still smoked faintly, a grim metaphor for a country where democracy, once promised, now flickers dimly. Residents gathered quietly at the edge of the police tape, some shaking their heads, others snapping photos. The words painted across the building's cracked banner seemed almost prophetic. "Defending our Constitution." Whether the government admits responsibility or not, the symbolism is unmissable, a literal attack on free speech carried out at the heart of the capital. Zimbabwe's democracy has been bombed, not just in brick and mortar, but in spirit. And as one activist whispered while leaving the scene, "They can destroy the building, but they'll never silence the idea that Zimbabwe belongs to its people."